Right. Good evening, everyone. We are holding in Torah Lamed Ches. And we're holding Basif Hey, but let's do a little recap. This particular Torah is based on what the Arizal says in Sefer Etz Chaim, that the when a person goes to sleep, that the moichin that he had actually, as it were, it's actually the residue of the moichin that he had during that day is going away. When a person goes to sleep, takes his seichel and he goes to sleep. So what happens is that, as we explained, that the in the process of going to sleep, the malchus take its moichin and puts it, says Arizal, for safekeeping in the heart of Zer Anpin. Zer Anpin, we're also going to sleep. Everybody goes to sleep. So Zer Anpin also takes off its moichin and deposits them above its head. And the person goes to sleep. Now, when a person wakes up, Chatzos, and he sits and learns Torah, what he's doing is he is building the Malchus. Throughout the night, he's building the Malchus. That's the main reason why the prototypical Chatzoiser is, of course, David HaMelech, that gets up in Chatzois, because David HaMelech is obviously the Malchus. Is the embodiment of the Malchus, and the Malchus is being built by learning Torah throughout the night, and during the day, the Malchus, the newly built Malchus, goes up to its shirish, to its root, and which is the 5 fingers of the left hand, and it goes up and it sits next to the heart. And once it's there, it gets the moichin that is deposited for safekeeping. When the person went to sleep, it gets it, and the Zer Anpin, Arizal says, gets envious of the fact that the Malchus now has the moichin, and it downloads, as it were, its own moichin. And then, when a person davens, both are getting brand new moichin. New chiddush, chadashim livkorim rabam unasecha. You get new moichin, you get new. And after davening, you take off your tefillin, and you go to eat, you go to work, whatever it is. So what happens is that the moichin go away, but what is left is what they call the reshima, the residue, and that's the thing that follows you during the day. And then when you go to sleep at night, again, the same thing happens all over again. That's the process. Now, Rabbeinu teaches us. He uses all the limudim. As Rabbeinu says that the Iker limud the Kabbalah will be la'osid lovin, as we'll learn in Torah Chaf Beis, that Rabbeinu uses it l'maisa. What he takes the Divrei Arizal and he uses it as he shows you how to serve Kadosh Baruch Hu with it. As we learn in Torah Mentes, we learn about the Tzimtzum and about the Oilemus. So Rabbeinu explains it's about the person's heart, that these are parallel existences. Same way as the Kadosh Baruch Hu, made a Tzimtzum, Chol Apanoi. The same way a person does it with his heart, by staying away from bad thoughts and good thoughts of building and so forth. The same thing is over here. And so the Rebbe starts the Torah by saying that the person needs to keep a constant check about how connected he is to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he says that the only siman, the siman of dveikus, of connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu, the only one is tefillin. We mentioned that Adam Rishon had this connection, had this keren echad hay b'mitzchay, that he was connected to the highest level of Yechida, the Yechida, and when he sinned, he got disconnected. And in comparison to before the Chet, this is equal to dying. In other words, when a person goes to Beis HaChaim, the Niftar in Beis HaChaim, they have, the nefesh is always connected. There's a Havla de Garmi that is always connected. And more than the difference between a person who is alive and a person who is in his grave, that difference is smaller than the difference between our level and the level of living that Adam Rishon had. But that's why when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Adam Rishon, and the day you will eat from the fruit of Etz Hadas Tov Hara, you shall surely die. And we see that, we see he didn't die then, right? It was 900 years later. And so there are all kinds of explanations to it. As we said, in a sense, we're dying all the time. There's never, a time that you can say, okay, here, now I'm alive. I mean, you just passed it. So it's but the truth is that he says that day, it's also, the pshat is that when Adam Rishon was disconnected, that he was connected through that place that the brain of a baby can be felt, the cranium, that is soft. This is the place of that film. Adam Rishon was connected to Yechida, the Yechida, and Mimele, he lived such life that it was naturally forever, because he was one with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu is forever, Adam Rishon is forever. The minute he was disconnected, that is instant death. Yes, he's alive. I mean, but the bones in the grave are also alive. But nevertheless, there's still. So what we're doing basically is recreating this kind of reconnection. So any kind of all ascensions, we are starting from the bottom up. And Rabbeinu says the bottom is the Dibur, because the Dibur is, Kadosh Baruch Hu put himself in us so we can communicate with him. Because otherwise we cannot, we are totally Gashmis, Kadosh Baruch Hu, totally Ruchnis. Vayipach be'apav nishmas chaim vayi leruach memalo. Then he becomes a talking spirit. Our ability to speak is the Kadosh Baruch Hu in us. There is a very, very big impediment that stops us from being connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's a klipa that called ketz kol basar. That's the taiva, to put down everything and everybody and explain in great detail while the other person is wrong, and bring proof. There's like one person came to Rav Nosson and they asked him how are the friends. So he went, how's this one? No, this one, this one. Says, what about you? He says, I'm worse than everybody. He says, that's you did away with the entire world. Elamah, you're okay, they're okay, everybody else is okay. So this clip of Ketz Kol Basar, it wants to finish absolutely everything. So the first thing the person needs to do is to overcome Shmiras Halosh. The first thing is you have to press down that clip of Ketz Kol Basar. This is how you start the whole thing. The minute you do that, that's the beginning of Aliyas Malchus. It's like, when a person is under the influence of Ketz Kol Basar's Pchinas Laila, and as we learned later on, that the way to start the ascension of the Dibur is by learning Torah mitoch aniyas v'dachkes, in poverty and in distress. And it doesn't matter really what kind of poverty or what kind of distress there is. It could be physical, it could be attention deficit disorder, it could be a lot of whatever it is that stops a person. Somebody is a genius and somebody is not necessarily the sharpest tool in the shed. Each one has his own impediments that hold him back from. By pushing against those impediments, the dibur starts coming up. A person the dibur goes up, and when the dibur goes up, people talk incessantly. The dibur, like everything else, is a koyma shleimo, is a total stature, and it has a head. The head of the dibur is emes, and it says rosh dvarcha emes. This is the main thing. Everything else that the person speaks is just blah blah, just basically flapping his lips, it's just doing nothing. It says that it's not even called a dibur. So dibur emes is when a person starts speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he starts speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's when a person learns Torah mitoch dachkes, and the Torah and his dibur goes up, and it sits on his arm, as it were. This is the malchus sitting on the arm next to the heart. And when a person speaks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the very beginning, you're talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you might feel that you're talking to the wall. And a person may have a very hard time in it. It can be as fascinating as watching paint dry. You go around in the fell, watch cars go by, whatever, and you find that you cannot concentrate. And but that when a person keeps on talking these diburim that come from the limud Torah, the koyach, as the Rebbeinu says in Torah, what happens is he gets the fire from the heart. This is parallel to the malchus that is getting the reshima that is deposited in the heart of Zer Anpin before the person went to sleep. And then a person starts really speaking, like had diburim. The person gets into it, it gets excited, and he gets, speaking with a great deal of enthusiasm and fire. And then what happens is that he gets moichin. The level of Zer Anpin in him gets its own moichin. As we said, Zer Anpin becomes envious of the malchus and it pulls down its own moichin. This is when a person suddenly starts realizing, what on earth is going on with me? I mean, until now, but basically I was, running on oiled grooves, everything was okay. But when a person starts speaking, diburim chamim ke'esh, these hot diburim, and he gets his moichin, suddenly he gets a revelation of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he starts to realize what he did. He says, until now, the Rebbe says, and before you got the therapy gets its moichin, a person was under the impression that, it's basically all right. It's like, I mean, I'm not, I don't know who, but plus minus, I got my place, not too much to the left, not much too much to the right. And just about, yeah, of course, I got things to prove, but who doesn't, right? And suddenly a person gets a little bit of an inkling of what we're actually talking about. By the way, this year is devoted to the first of all, the refer for Shimon ben Yafa Shendel that went through heart catheterization. As Hashem, it went well. As Hashem, checking for Shlema, and there is Aaron Yeshua ben Aviva who's going tomorrow through a rather complicated medical procedure. So that is for him as well. So we said that the difference between Yiras Ha'onish, we said it last week, and Yiras Ha'roimenos is Yiras. This is a vote of Rav Teichner, Shimon Teichner. It's that when a person comes, with his car to a picnic, and they see a lion half a mile away, they all get back into the car and they drive off. This is called Yiras Ha'onish. Yiras Ha'roimenos is the lion is 10 feet from you. You're totally frozen. This is so the Arya Shog Milo Yira. The Yiras Hashem. The Yiras Hashem is such that the Yiras Ha'roimenos is such that the person can be frozen, like when a person is facing a lion or something. It's like even if you have a gun in your hand, you can't move. You're just like totally paralyzed. And when a person realizes that this is what reality is, and he gets a glimpse of the fact of the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that, we use these words, rather easily, begin the year Rav, Shalta Kol Almin, because he is above and he rules all the oilness. It's okay, Baruch Hashem, we're saying the right words, but we don't really know what we're saying. And when a person starts speaking, with the fire that the Malchus gets from the heart, and he gets the motion, suddenly they open up the curtain a little bit, and he gets a look at, all these things that until now he dumped behind his shoulder, all the chataim that he didn't pay any attention to them. Then he starts really doing tshuva. He starts being really embarrassed. But this embarrassment is still theoretical. I mean, yeah, you feel embarrassed, but it's still not expressed on a person's face. And he says, then when a person does tshuva, and Rabbeinu uses the what's the pshat that a person does tshuva? Rabbeinu uses a very precise. The Likutey Moharan is a very, very precise sefer. Rabbeinu uses he says Umeisir mimenu atipshus. A person removes the foolishness from himself. We mentioned last week that that what Rabbeinu is telling us is that foolishness is not the IQ. It's not like, well, what do you want from me? You want it to be wise, make me, no. Foolishness is a choice. One of the chidushim is one of them. The foolishness is a choice. The second one is the simcha is a choice. I mean, yes, there are, there's impediments, this natural impediment is stand on the way. By the way, that ketz kol basar is not only about other people, it's also about me. I am no good, I am nothing, and what do you expect me to be? Why expect me to be with simcha? On top of that, simcha is a choice. Foolishness is a choice. I mean, it uses meisir tipshus mimenu. In other words, it's only when you're actually looking at the tipshus in the eye and you realize that you might not really want to take the tipshus away. And it's not, it's not a put down. As we said last week, we are very complex people, we're very complex beings, and in our character defects, in our foolishness serves us. They serve us. It's like if somebody is he wants to be, how would foolishness serve a person? Well, it takes away responsibility. It enables me to, to sort of like put a blanket statement, on whatever it is, I'm not from or whatever it is, and just as if everything is, they said that the Vilna Gaon once went in the street and he saw a Moscow that was smoking a cigarette on Shabbos. He says, "Why are you doing this?" So he said, he says, the person says, he's not from. So the Vilna Gaon says, "You fool, what do you think? You're not going to give the for this particular cigarette? Well, once you put a blanket statement that you're not from, you think that everything goes into one basket and just like, it's every single thing that a person does, he gets schar, and when a person comes to that crossroad, and he feels that busha. He feels that busha, but the busha is still not on his face, Rabbeinu says.
So he has to go from embarrassment to shame.
He has, yes. Yeah, the point is that he has to actually take the next step. Take the next step, and the next step is to ask the Kadosh Baruch Hu to allow him to give up the foolishness. People say, like, what are you talking about? Because there's a lot of strings attached. There's all kinds of way that foolishness serve me. I use it as painkiller. I use it as antidepressant. I use it as whatever it is. And it takes patience. It takes tefillah. It takes a lot of tefillah. You keep on davening, ask Kadosh Baruch Hu, get me over this line. Please get me over this line. So I'll be able to take off the foolishness from me. Once a person takes the foolishness off him, there is automatically an influx of moichin that comes in. Seichel comes in. It just, there's no vacuum. Now a person is more connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he becomes really ashamed. And that comes over his face. And the Misgale Abusha al Panov, the Zois Abusha al Pchinas Orat film. That Busha, that's the light of the film. The Rebbe asked Reb Nosson, yeah.
I noticed here something similar that we find in Torah Reish Pedeis, where Rabbi Nachman starts with speaking about the other, and then he switches and he speaks about a new.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I think the same thing just happened. Where Rabbi Nachman is speaking about the busha, the embarrassment on somebody else. But if you want to know where you're holding, when you look at somebody and you now become embarrassed because of what you see on their face.
Yeah, I know that you're talking about that the person has to clear his face until the other person will become embarrassed just by looking at him.
Right.
But this is not this Torah. This is still between a person and Kodesh Baruch Hu, mano a mano. Yeah, just eyeball to eyeball. This is not yet.
So my question,
Yeah.
follow-up question is, it seems that the busha it starts at the arm and the fingers, and has to somehow make its way to the face. It's filling in the left hand, 5 fingers, having it to the heart. So it's kind of like it runs through your fingers, it goes up your arm, it reaches your heart, and then it has to reach your face. So that's the goal is for the busha to manifest itself on the face.
That's right. That's right. But the process is actually a process that is repeated in practically all the Torahs in Likutey Moharan. They're all based on the same kind of essentially from different angles. You know, this Indian of Nasa V'Nishma, that you have to go from one Nasa V'Nishma that in Torah Chafei, when Benu says that the Pnimi Satachtan is Zoyla becomes, it's all around the same process. Over here, Rabbeinu takes that Kavonas Arizal, and basically it says when a person starts from a state of disconnect. This is when a person has, and there is a special guard, on that state of disconnect to make sure that the person is not connected, and that is to put down everybody else, himself included. And it says when you learn Torah, and the dibur starts going up, and with the dibur, as the dibur goes up, it goes up to the arm. The truth comes up, it goes up to the arm because the sharish of the dibur is the tzimtzum, is the gvuros, was chayidaber, as we said. And it gets, when the gvuros are in the heart, the sharish goes in the heart, right? And he starts speaking diburim chamim ka'esh, as Rabbeinu says in other places. It's only then that the person can actually break the hypnotic trance. I'm like, what? It's just not even realizing, what is going on. It's like and then the busha is an automatic reaction of the recognition of who am I talking to? What's the relationship? That's dveikus. This is what dveikus is. This is what Rabbeinu is saying here. And so after we said that by learning Torah, by niyas v'dachkes, that's the time when the klippas are the reign of the klippas, and a person breaks them down. The klippas called basar that control the dibur, doesn't let you speak, doesn't let you go, and is megala the dibur goes back to its shayrish, and the shayrish, we said the shayrish is the gvuros, and he puts the gvuros in the hearts into the dibur, and he speaks between you and your maker the truth, just the straight truth. And then a person starts looking at what I did, and the further you go with this process, the further back you go, the finer, suddenly remember things from when you were a kid, when you were a teenager. And you started, the higher you go, the cleaner you get, the more things come up. And you say, how could I do this? It's like okay, then I didn't know, but said, okay, but, it's like a kid whose mother put him, big the Shabbos as he goes out to places, don't get dirty, right? Okay, so then it pushes him and he slips into a pool of water and mud, whatever it is. It gets all dirty. Okay, so the mother won't scream at him, but he's dirty. Nevertheless, and then a person really looks at the vase and becomes really embarrassed. And this causes a person to do tshuva. Tshuva is dibur. Churmchem dvarim v'shuva l'Hashem. Rabbeinu says in Torah Daled. Dibur. And then you get to new seichel. When you get this new seichel, then you become really ashamed. And that shame is expressing on his face. And this is the light of the film that is misgala on his metzach. And we mentioned that there's a story that somebody came to the Balatanya. So he came out of the shul wearing film and he was beaten up by goyim. And he asked the Balatanya, how can it be? It says, Shem Hashem Nikra Lech. It's film. The Balatanya said, no, the light of film has to be inside, not on top. It has to be inside. So you can understand what the Balatanya was saying. The light is inside. When a person has the busha, it's inside. It comes from the heart. It comes when the dibur comes up. It reveals itself as film, but it's not the film on top, and the film from the bottom up. And so this. Now we're going to learn how this is being merumas in the pasuk as Tavin Yiras Hashem. Zeh Perush says the Mishlei as Tavin Yiras Hashem. Then you will comprehend the Yiras Hashem. It says the Zohar Kodesh.
How do you do Shuvah by Dibur? How does one do Shuvah by Dibur?
We can talk about it, perhaps later, because nobody can hear you except for me. So,
okay.
Okay. So, the Shalat Dibur is Shmir Saloshan, Pashut. If you're asking how can you machnia the klipa of Ketz Kol Basar, is Shmir Saloshan. It's Shmir Saloshan and making sure that you have a simcha. And in other words, not only you don't put down other people, you don't put down yourself either. And mind you, one of the important things that need to be understood is that people wonder how come they're not the simcha. Why it is so difficult to do the simcha? The usual answer is because they don't have his Beidados. Because if a person has his Beidados, he has this 1 hour reserved for Lev Nishba. Yeah, 1 hour to pour it all down. Then during the day, Rabbeinu said, you have 1 hour for Lev Nishba. Then during the day, categorically and decisively push off all machshavas of self-criticism. Just push it off. You're busy, you're doing the day, you're doing the best you can. Then you have an hour of Isbaidadus, then you pour it out, you watch out, what did I say, what did I do, the whole thing. But if a person doesn't have that time of Isbaidadus, it spills over the entire day. And it makes it practically impossible for a person to be b'simcha. What shall I do? There's things pile up. So he says, Ezer Kodesh, that tefillin pchinos ima al bira. Tefillin are the ima of mother over her children. That means the Sfira Sabina, which is the mother, is mashpia the moichin to the supernal persona Zer Anpin, as we know that it's made up of the 6 Sefirot of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, which is the sun. And then it says, Im Labina Tikra, it is in Mishle, it says, if you call the Bina, it says, Im is Yebuchirik. But I think that the Zohar says, you should don't say Im, but say it Im. It's not Im, but Im, Mishon, mother. The Tzir Sabina is Im, is a mother. So you find that film are Bina. I feel Sharosh represent, represent Bina, and therefore in other words, so that's why when a person wants to be Zoicha to the light of the film, a person has to understand properly the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This a person can do only once he does tshuva. Zeh perush az tovin, then you will comprehend. Hainu alidei binu yesera sheyeh be'akoras habarich. When a person will have an added comprehension in knowing HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the fact that he did tshuva, alidei zeh yiras Hashem. You get yiras Hashem. Hainu the b'chinas tefillin. A person, yiras Hashem is tefillin. As Chazal said, and all the people of the land will see that the name of Hashem is called upon you, and they will have yira from you. So the Gemara says in Brachas, it says Eilut tefillin. This is what we said before about the story about the Balatanya. Ki hayira hu abusha. The yira, the real yira, is a busha. As we said, the difference between yiras ha'inish and yiras ha'romus is the distance. A person that does things that he should not be doing, okay? He feels, a semblance of embarrassment, but it's not revealed yet. It's concealed. Suddenly, when everybody exposes it, when he's caught by a hidden camera or whatever it is, and it comes to fruition, a person can get so ashamed, that people, actually Shem Yerachim, they kill themselves. They can kill themselves. That's why it's called, maybe that's the root of the word shame is v'nikra b'shem. Shame is a result when suddenly the spotlight is on a person. Now he's a specific person, and then it's revealed to everybody, what he has done. Suddenly he has a name. It's not just somebody that did something, hidden, in back rooms that nobody sees. Suddenly it has a shame. It has a name. It has an identity, and maybe this is, epitomologically, whatever you call it. I don't know. Anybody who knows.
Etymology.
And of V'yiru abusha, Chazal said, Yiras Hashem al pneichem ze abusha. Yiras Hashem on your face, that is the busha. Shial upon him. And it says that the Gemara says over there that melamed busha brings yiras chet. That the film, which are the yira, they are also b'chinas busha. Hainu, when a person is zeicher to busha, this b'chinas film, through the bina, which is the mother on top of her children. Ima al bara. That Ima al bara means that the Zer Anpin, which is your own level of recognition, gets an aura from the Bina. You know, it's not for nothing that the Zer Anpin gets the name Kodesh of Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. The Shem, every single sphere has a holy name of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Chesed has Kel, and Gvura has Elokim. The Tiferes, which is also an overall name for Zenap and all the 6 spheres, gets the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. That is the. This is who you are. This is where you are. This is your own quote unquote isness. The Bina and the Chochma, you can reach up to Bina, but the Bina you get an influx of Moichin from the Bina. The Chochma is totally unfathomable. It's not even it's Chochma within the Bina when you are enabling your cognition in the level of Zer Anpin to get the Moichin. You get an influx of Moichin, and then the Moichin are, you get the Busha. Em al Banea. This is Gedula Saboyer. Tefillin nikraim pe'er. Tefillin are called pe'er. Shenema pe'ercha chavoish alecha. Put your glory on top of your head. This is by the Cheskel. And he says that Kodesh Baruch Hu told the Cheskel, the Novi, that his wife, Lo Aleinu, he's supposed to lose his wife, and he says she told him not to be noyeg, aveilus, and he says, Pe'ercha chavoish alecha, wear your glory on you. And so Chazal said in Brachos, this is the film. That was wear film. There's no, because it was a mashal for the nevuah that he was supposed to be Menabel and Am Yisrael. So there are a lot of instances when you say by Yirmiyah Novi, every Novi that Kodesh Baruch Hu told him do this and do that, or marry such a woman and do this, or lie on your left side, or whatever, for 6 months. This, and those actions are the kalim that the Novi gets the nevuah, because Baruch Hu tells him what is going to be the Klal Yisrael and what he should tell the Jewish people. So we said, he was just using a pe'er chavosh alecha. That means the pe'er is the tefillin. And pe'er or klal yosagavnim. Pe'er is the incorporation of the supernal colors. Kisparas aladei klal yosagavnim. This is where the aspirus is. Koshekosu Yisrael shabecha espor kem klulin migavnin sagoin, because they are composed of supernal colors. As we see, when a person is misbayish, when a person becomes very embarrassed, so he changes colors. When a person is zocher to busha, is actually zocher to klal yosagavnin, which is the pe'er. The Torah's manis that was just recently concluded, and we finished learning also just yesterday. Yeah, long ago, I already forgot. All right. Okay, anyhow. That we're talking about the Gedula Saboyer is the thing that enables a person to cut through the wall of confusion, distractions, thoughts, impediments, hurdles, whatever stops a person between one madrega to the next. Whenever a person goes to the next madrega, he gets a whole deluge of bilbulin. And Rabbeinu says over there that the way to dispel these klippas, now we can understand that if we are taking from that Torah to that Torah, that mistama, that these klippos, the Rabbeinu talks in Torah Chafei, is probably the Indian of Ketz Kol Basar. Probably that doesn't enable a person to see and to get. But the Rebbe over there says that the Indian of the revelation of the Pe'er is through tzedakah. So it reminds me of the Kotzker Rebbe said there's a kasha. It's a bomba kasha, really. How is it possible that Am Yisrael lived Dora Midbar without the mitzvah of tzedakah? Have you ever thought of it? Eliyahu. Nobody needed anything. Nobody lacked anything. Oh, so that was his teretz. So that's his teretz is Hashem Eskil Dal. There was that from here you learn, this Indian that if you teach a person, they were helping each other in the voice of Hashem. They were teaching each other. They were learning. They were chadering the Torah got from Moshe, and they're all, I think that the Rambam or the Ramban, I'm not sure. They're saying that all of Dora Midbar, everyone, strove for Ruach Nevuah, to attain Ruach Nevuah, and he says that most of them got it. Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Mi ten kol am Hashem nedim." Everybody should get it. But most of them got it. Some didn't. It's a gewaltige Zach. And so so we can understand that when a person gets das, a person gets busha. Rabbeinu says in Torah Chafei that through tzedakah le'oni hagun, a person is gilui gavnin, which is in the money. Desire is all the time is predicated on completing Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. And as we said, that the union of tzedakah is that the yud is the coin, is the moichin is getting through the 5 fingers of the giver. This is the bino, that's it. And the vav is, Arizal explains, this is the hand that reaches out to give to the poor person, and it comes down in the hand of the poor person. That's the heachrona, that's the malchus. That means that only when the circuit is complete, when you complete the circuit of Yud Kei Vav Kei, then the gavnin are expressed. It is done through tzedakah. It is done through this particular mahalach that we are learning here. And it says, this is how we can understand if a person has Yiras Shamayim. Hainu busha. It says, that's what you said now. That's what you said. That we look on a person's face and we feel embarrassed, we feel yira. That we get an influx of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pirush as Tovi Yiras Hashem, then you will understand Yiras Hashem. Pirush Bezeh. Bezeh tavin sheyesh lo Yiras Hashem. With this you will understand that person has Yiras Hashem. V'das Elokim timtzu. Hainu sheyimatzecha gam lecha dea b'gdulas habayra. When you will find, you too shall find a notion, a recognition, an awareness in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hainu busha v'yira. Zeh b'chinas v'ro kol amei haaretz kishem Hashem yikalecha v'yaru mimeka. In other words, you see that person, that he has Yiras Shamayim, that he has, and you feel that busha, the yaru mimeka, they get nimshach gam aleim a yira. that they see that film, they see a person who is Zoiche to Pchin of film unto Yerusha, they also acquire the Midah of the Yira.
So something similar, the Nachman says, is a litmus test. How we know this person is holding the Yira in this Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are experiencing embarrassment when you look at the person.
Right.
So this is also with regards to different tzaddikim, that you can tell what kind of a tzaddik the person is based on how you feel in their presence. If the tzaddik is holding in the midah of ava and you feel warmth in their presence, that's because they're holding in the midah of ava. And if they're holding in the midah of yira or gura or dinim, that because you feel in front of them that hargasha. So it's like a litmus test.
That's right.
Is giving us a tool how to know who you're in front of. So if you're in front of somebody and you experience busha, it's because they have Yerushalayim.
You say very good, because one of the things which is very important for us to understand, especially as Bersel Chasidim, is that there are tzaddikim elsewhere. Tzaddikim are not confined to Breslev. It's a big, great tzaddikim, in many, many different places. And the fact is that the light of all the tzaddikim is basically the same light. It's just each one has his own gavan, has his own, it goes through his own keli, whatever it is. But it's basically the same light. So it's the same light. The difference is how open the shutter is, and there's this is the last year before Rosh Chodesh Elul. So, Potter without even saying a single word is not possible. So just mamish a couple of words. If you remember in Sipurei Maisius, in the story of the Veda Bas Melech, that he falls asleep for 70 years. And when he wakes up, he asks his servant, where am I in the world? So he tells him, there was a carriage and the princess came down and she wrote everything. She cried and she wrote everything on a kerchief and she left it by you. And he leaves the servant behind and he goes searching for years, and he goes in deserts and sees these great people, walking with these immense trees. It says that one of them is a memuna on the animals, and the other one is a memuna on all the birds, and the other one and each one tells him, somebody has been fooling you. There's no such thing. He is looking for a mountain of gold and a castle made of pearls. And they all tell him, there's no such thing. There is no such thing. And so when you start sort of like learning this Torah, you're going through this Torah, it seems to like, okay, they don't really know. Great as they may be, with all the tools that they have to ascertain what the facts are, they don't really know. Raya, at the end, there's a wind that says that it carried Bas Melech to a mountain of gold and a castle made of pearls. But when you look deeply into the Lashon of Rabbeinu and the Maisa, what he gets to, and he's an action. He says, I know there is. First of all, he cries. The first time with the first Chacham, he cries. The second Chacham, he doesn't cry, but he gets an action. The third one that is in charge of all the ruchos, of all the ruach, he tells them, and all the winds come, and they say there's no such thing. Then he cries bitterly. And then comes this storm wind that says, He said, so Memunus is very upset with him. Where were you? I called all the winds to come. He says, I was busy taking the Bas Melech to a mountain of gold. And so we're going to, yay, the cavalry came in the last moment. But if you look deeply into that, that means there was no such thing. She was not there. Now, when he started crying bitterly, then the wind took the Bas Melech. Until now, they all told him the truth. There's no such thing. What we need to understand from this, Rabbeinu says, you have a koyach to do tshuva on one of there. Vis-a-vis what a Kodesh Baruch Hu is. So he says, I have to do tshuva for you. It's not tzaddikim have to do tshuva for. There is a whole mashal about a horse. Beat him up. The tzaddik has to do tshuva for the people. Because you're talking about something, it's not humanly possible for a person to do tshuva, proper tshuva, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way it needs to be done. The tshuva has to come. Rabbeinu says tshuva is beyond time. That's what the Baal Bira Likutey says in the 18th Klolim. He says that number 12, he says that tzaddik speaks from a place of beyond place, and then the 13 is beyond time. And he took the whole thing out, the whole sefer. In order for us to get to do tshuva, in order for us to get, we need the Bas Melech from a time that doesn't exist yet, from a place that doesn't exist yet. In this normal place and time where we are, there's no way we can do it. So what's the difference between the first time he cries with the first giant and the last time he cried bitterly? Why two different cries? The first Chacham told him, was fresh, just getting the message. He told him no such thing. Okay, so you don't know. He cries. I'm sure that there is. The last Chacham is in charge of all the ruchos of the Olam HaRuach. This all of the tzaddikim. Everything is in the ruach. Keruach hi ba'odam. And there's no such thing. There's no tikkun for you. Then he's standing. He's facing. A broken bucket. That's it. There's no way out. Then he really cries. And that pulls that brings the Bas Melech to the Hashazor Mitzvah Magom Shemagolius, which in itself is this Ian of Tefillin. That in itself, this idea of, and this is why we're so desperate to get to Uman Rosh Hashanah, because we need to get this tshuva. We can only do what we can do, but I'll avoid that, but we need a tikkun that doesn't even yet exist in the world, doesn't even exist in place and time yet. It has to be brought down. That's where Rav Nosson explained this. The tzaddik, the tzaddik emes in Rosh Hashanah goes to to Ein Sof to start the and then it brings up such shtickle tzimtzum, and then the Hashem should help us with that. Hashem, we should be all zercha to do proper tshuva in this coming Elul. Bezat Hashem, we shall all be zercha to be by Rabbeinu HaKadosh in Uman. Anybody that can be there physically should be there physically. Anybody that for any reason cannot be there physically, I'm not talking about somebody who doesn't want to be there, but somebody that there are manias that he cannot overcome. It is, if you really, you can't, you are in Uman. Like when you have a tzion, because you don't have to be on the tzion itself. If you're standing by the distance, you're also in. If Nosson says just be in Uman also. So if you can't get to Uman, there's no way you can get to Uman. So you are in Uman together only if you want to. Then you are in Uman also, only between you and the Tzion. There are 1 million people, or 10 million people are blocking between you and the Tzion. But you have to want to. If you don't want to, you're not there. Hashem should help us all, should have Bezat Hashem good Shabbos and a good Chodesh, and Bezat Hashem we'll be Zocher to Ksila, Chasima Tova, Nagid Geben Shtira.
Thanks, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Bezat Hashem. You're welcome.